this is the fourth year that they've been forced to be there to counter the Chinese transgression that started in May 2020. The Indian Army, the Border Roads Organization, the Indian Air Force, they have really upgraded the entire military infrastructure on the LAC. 20 years ago, there was a situation of China under discussion where the Indian Army said that why do we need to build roads? We don't want the Chinese to come in. That situation has completely changed now. Chinese have been intruding into Bhutanese territory, particularly along the Amuchu, which is a river which subsequently becomes Tista when it comes to India. Now, these intrusions are going to create a lot of problems for India. China is telling Bhutan that, listen, I am willing to concede the border on the northern Bhutan. You give me the eastern Bhutan border in turn. Now, if that happens, the Indian Army and the Indian positions will become vulnerable. The Indian side is saying, listen, you talk about economic normalcy, you talk about political normalcy. None of this is possible till the time you take the following steps and the de-escalation takes place. Only then we can talk business with China. The Indian government is very clear that we are also going to stay put. We are also going to counter this aggression till such time the two come to a via media solution. So effectively right now, if you were to say, LAC is an LOC. Xi Jinping, to my mind, wants to unify China. When you say unify China, it means Taiwan, it means South Tibet, which is Arunachal, it means the already rejected line on East Ladakh, which was given in 1959.
India and the US are holding their fifth 2+2 dialogue in New Delhi, even as we speak. The China question is going to figure prominently there. And the discussions are coming even as the Indian troops prepare for their fourth consecutive grueling winter at the LAC after China's 2020 transgressions in East Ladakh. We have with us Shishir Gupta, executive editor of the Hindustan Times. Shishir, tell us, what is the current state of deployment as far as and China are concerned at the LAC?
Namaskar. Uh, Currently, both sides are fully deployed in East Ladakh, and with China deploying as many as 2 divisions of troops backed by rocket and missile regiments. India has an equal deployment in the LSC. Uh, Both sides are prepared for all exigencies, but the situation over there is currently stable.
The situation is currently stable, but there is a huge troop deployment from both sides. How are the Indian troops preparing for this fourth successive winter at the LSA? Because the temperatures there are unhuman, apparently.
See, the East Ladakh LAC, which stretches from Karakoram Pass down to Chumar, uh, the temperatures over here can go down as much as minus 40 degrees. But if the temperature does not kill you, the winds definitely will kill you. And the wind chill factor is so bad that actually your tank barrels freeze, your ammunition does not work, your equipment does not function. It's a really a very horrible workplace as far as the Indian Army is concerned. And this is the fourth year that they've been forced to be there to counter the Chinese transgression that started in May 2020. And currently, what is happening is that the Indian Army is now prepared for it. But the thing is that there is a need for de escalation but the Chinese are still not willing to come to those terms.
Okay, what has changed at the LSE in terms of how the Indian Army is approaching the China threat ever since 2020?
See, the Indian Army, the Border Roads Organization, the Indian Air Force, they have really upgraded the entire military infrastructure on the LAC. And what is happening is that initially they were actually pushed into countering in May 2020. Now they're more or less prepared for it, and they're prepared not only all along the 1597-kilometer LAC in East Ladakh, but in Arunachal, as well as in Sikkim and the middle sector, which is the Barahuti Plains and Uttarakhand. So the Indian Army has actually, for instance, like in East Ladakh, they are in positions now across over Pagongso. They're in positions which are dominating the Demchok sector, the Chumar sector, something which has never happened before. You must remember, Aarti, that 20 years ago, there was a situation of China under discussion where the Indian Army said that why do we need to build roads? We don't want the Chinese to come in. That situation has completely changed now. We have built roads all across, all along the LSC. We have built ammunition dumps along the LSC. We have actually positioned troops in a dominant position along the LSC. And barring the weather, barring the isolation of the place, the Indian Army is pretty much prepared to counter the PLA aggression, which started in May 2020.
Okay, I'm going to come to the fact as to why, and you can probably enlighten our viewers why this transgressions and why this, LAC eyeball to eyeball situation between India and China is continuing, and why are we not able to resolve it? Whether it's the Chinese problem or is there anything else that the Chinese are demanding? What are they looking at? I will come to that, but I want to talk about, while this is going on, uh, Bhutan and China have started their border talks again. How is that? And that is, of course, a huge concern for New Delhi. How is India approaching that particular issue?
Bhutan and China have been in dialogue for quite some time now. It's not something new that has happened right now. But the critical part is that this dialogue is to settle the border issue, which actually intersects the Indian security concerns on the Bhutan India China trijunction, which essentially means the Doklam Plateau, because the Doklam Plateau overlooks the Siliguri corridor, which is very sensitive to India. And what is happening is that the Chinese have been intruding into Bhutanese territory, particularly along the Amuchu, which is a river which subsequently becomes Tista when it comes to India. Now, these intrusions are going to create a lot of problems for India. Bhutan, being a small, happy kingdom, does not have the force or wherewithal to actually handle China, because China being a superlative military power. Now, what is happening is that China is telling Bhutan that, listen, I am willing to concede the border on the northern Bhutan. You give me the eastern Bhutan border in turn. Now, if that happens, the Indian army and the Indian positions will become vulnerable. So the right now this tussle is going on between Bhutan and China, but I am told Bhutan is holding and holding very good.
Now come to the bigger question between India and China, the LAC. This eyeball to eyeball situation from the LAC has continued from 2020 till now, and this has happened despite several rounds of meetings, not just
Yeah.
between the
Yes.
military commanders on both sides, but also between the leaders on both sides. At
Yeah.
various on the sidelines of various international meetings and fora. Why do you think we are unable to resolve this issue?
See, the Chinese have been taking positions which have been very strident. There have been 20 rounds of military dialogue with India. I am told till the 19th round, the Chinese were not even willing to concede whether that they had actually amassed across the border. Now, I'll go to specific places in that. The Indian side wants that the Chinese should do the following things. One, disengage from the friction point. Two, relocate to the previous positions where they were prior to May 2020. Three, border patrolling should be resumed. Fourth, de escalation should take place. These are the 4 points that Indians have been emphasizing on, without which political normalcy with China cannot take place. The Chinese side, on their part, have now decided that they are willing to look at the Indian proposal, because the Indian side also now is pretty much prepared for a long haul all along the LAC, and that includes Arunachal also. You have now the Sela Pass under tunnel is ready now. It's going to be inaugurated by Prime Minister Modi anytime now, within a month or 2 months. The Nechipu tunnel is ready. So Tawang sector, which is the sensitive sector in Arunachal, is secure now. You have new air bases coming in East Ladakh. A Neoma air base is coming up, which is going to be used for logistics. This is just behind Chushul. You have other advanced landing grounds coming all along the LAC. So the Indian side is also, the Indian army is also prepared for it now. So the Indian side is saying, listen, you talk about economic normalcy, you talk about political normalcy. None of this is possible till the time you take the following steps and the de-escalation takes place. Only then we can talk business with China.
You've said what the Indian side's demands are, uh, and China doesn't seem like is going to agree to all of this, not by the tone and tenor that they've been adopting in the recent past, and especially Xi Jinping's hegemonistic ambitions. How do you see this playing out in the near future? Will the LAC become the new LOC?
See, the way the Chinese have deployed the PLA, particularly across Arunachal, across East Ladakh, they are in significant numbers. Let me tell you, after Xi Jinping was sworn in for his third term as the president, which is last year, October 22, 6 combined armed brigades were deployed across Arunachal. Initially, we thought that they had been deployed because they were fearing that there would be some rebellion within Tibet. But this is not the case. These combined armed brigades have not gone back. In fact, 3 of them came from Eastern Theater, 1 came from the Northern Theater. These armed brigades are still there. There is heavy deployment in East Ladakh across the LAC. So the Chinese are also more or less pushing India to come to terms with it. But the fact is that the Indian army, the Indian government is very clear that we are also going to stay put. We are also going to counter this aggression till such time the two come to a via media solution. So, effectively, right now, if you were to say, LAC is an LOC.
LAC is an LOC, and you're seeing that it's not going to be easy coming to terms from both sides, to coming to some sort of terms to finish off this rapprochement. And in the meantime, the Indian troops, of course, stationed at the LAC in very harsh winter conditions.
Aditi, I have,
This is,
you see,
please.
the point is this, that you mentioned President Xi Jinping. Now, President Xi Jinping thinks of himself as the new Mao Zedong. Now, what has happened is that he is a very dominant power in Beijing, and he is the only leader over there. You know, he's thrown out his foreign affairs minister, he's thrown out his defense minister. There have been changes in the PLA. So Xi Jinping wants to leave a legacy of his own. Mao Zedong gave them, what they say is that, Chinese says that they gave him their credibility to China. Deng Xiaoping gave them the economic status. Xi Jinping, to my mind, wants to unify China. When you say unify China, it means Taiwan, it means South Tibet, which is Arunachal, it means the already rejected line on East Ladakh, which was given in 1959. So the things are, they may look settled, but actually the Chinese have not moved an inch from their position. And that is what is the biggest threat to India.
So the India-China stalemate continues along the LOC at Depsang, at Demchok, at several locations. The problem is that China is unable or not wanting to come to the negotiating table on India's terms, and India clearly does not see eye to eye with China's terms for breaking this stalemate. The stalemate continues, and our troops, of course, prepare for their fourth consecutive winter in the freezing conditions at East Ladakh. Thank you, viewers, for watching this broadcast. Thank you, Shishir, for sharing those inputs with our viewers and with the entire audience. Stay tuned to Hindustan Times Point Blank.